Hello and a very warm welcome to episode 22 of our Little Harbour Homewares shop project. Now since the last episode I've managed to get the first floor finished off, so I'll show you what I've been doing there, and then we're going to make a start on filling the shelves on the ground floor. So let's get started. So I've finished the back wall and I'd got to sort of those cluster of pictures there. So what I've done is I've added another life belt. Did that just slightly larger and in different colours. And then I've added a couple of more shell frames on the end there. And then that wooden painting that you can see there, I actually asked Matt if he would do something for me, just a really nice sort of beach scene. And he did that on a piece of grooved wood, just using emulsion paints and small detailing brushes. And then I've added the lettering on there, Summer Breeze. So I think that looks really good along there now. Lots of different bits and pieces on there. And then to sort of fill the space beside the bed there, I've done some sort of pots with driftwood in, or to look like driftwood. And the pots are actually the small barrels. So if you remember, I used the medium and large downstairs on the ground floor. So this is the small one of that sort of set of 3. And I took 3 of those out of stock. So I've used 2. I've got another one over here standing in the fireplace, which looks quite nice. And then I've kept another one because I thought I could cut it in half and use that for some smaller pieces and have those standing about. And then for the actual driftwood, that's just twigs from the garden, so the smallest twigs I could find. And I just painted those twigs using Vancouver, and then just put a little bit of glue into the bottom of the barrel and then arranged those in there, and then just cut them to different lengths and display, with the tallest at the back. And then I've also started adding some pricing labels. I've got one on the sofa there, on the bed, and then here on the blanket chest. And for those I used Typeface Martina and a number 5 font. And if you just print your values off as you normally would, and then cut around them, so cut that into an oblong, then use cotton to make the little tie, double knot that, and then cut it at an angle at one end, and that's just easier than cutting it first and then only having that little tiny bit to put your cotton through. And then I've also added some prices to the back wall, there and there. And you don't need to put a price on everything, just sort of indicate prices of a few items. And I just think if you put too many labels about, it's going to look a little bit messy. Obviously it's up to you, you can put prices on everything if you wanted to, but I just think the sort of indication of a few prices looks quite nice. And then I also just made a little label for the boat shelf, which stands out there. And again, just printed it off as normal, and then just folded that into a little triangle, glued it together, and then glued it into place on the shelf there. I've also used these baskets for some of the prints. I had quite a few left, so I just poured some glue into the bottom of the basket and then arranged those in there, and then added pricing labels on there as well. So I've stood a couple of things on here, they're not attached, so I've still got this unit to dress, but I was waiting because I want to make some candles and some lanterns and things to go downstairs, so I'll use some of those just to create a little bit of a different display on there to the other pieces in the room. And then I might also dot some candles and other little bits around on those 2 side tables. They look a little bit bare at the moment. So I have got some more pricing labels to do, but I'll finish those off when I'm doing the price labels for downstairs as well and do them all in one go. So now we're going to move down onto the ground floor, and I've just got a couple of changes that I want to make, and the first of those is those little shutters on the mantelpiece there, and if you remember, they used to be that sort of deep jewel green colour. So I've painted those using the Vancouver, and now I just want to sand them to age them up a bit. And I just want to do that because I feel now that the green stands out a little bit too much. Originally I was going to do all of the shelves and everything in all of those different colours that we chose at the beginning, but I actually stuck with the Vancouver just because I really love the colour, and I think all of the accessories are going to add, you know, the splashes of colour, so I didn't need to do the shelves as I'd originally planned. But because these were the green, they now stand out a little bit too much. So I've just gone over them in Vancouver, and now I'm using 180 grade sandpaper just to sand them back a bit, add a bit of aging. I haven't gone too mad with those, and that's just enough to make them look weathered, and you can still see some of that lovely green coming through, but it's not too overpowering. So let's put those back in place in the shop, like that. And then the next change I actually want to make is to repaint these corner shelves. And again, that was sort of my original plan of having everything in there a different colour. But I think that blue is a little bit too dark, and I'm going to be limited to the colours that I can put on there. And I know that sounds silly because everything is sort of blue and white, but the blue, dark blue glass that I've got in my tub here really doesn't look very nice with that darker blue paint. So I'm going to repaint those in the Vancouver, but obviously I'll have to do that with them in situ. So I'm just going to use a small brush and just be really careful. But the first thing I need to do is just take out a few of these pieces and then move the whole shop forward onto my work surface here. So I'll do that now. So I just used my soft brush to wipe any dust off of these, and I've got the Vancouver here, and I'm going to need to paint both sides of the shelves, certainly with the top ones anyway. So I've got a medium-sized brush here, and I'm just going to be really careful along the walls. And I'm also just being careful of the ceiling light as well. I just felt my finger knock against that, so I'm going to have to be careful not to knock that. So this is actually proving to be more difficult than I thought, and it's just because it's such an odd angle to get into. It's quite dark in there as well, so I think I need to go and find my little spotlight out. And I've got my glasses on, but I keep knocking them on the edge of the room. And it is going to need 2 coats to get a good coverage, but I'll persevere. So I'll carry on with this now and then show you when I've got the first coat on. So that's 1 coat of paint on the shelves, and when I've put my light on that I can see quite a few blue patches, so they're going to need a second coat. And despite my best efforts and using a detail brush, I still managed to get it on the wall in places. So I'll see if I've got any of this bluey grey paint left, and then I can just touch up where I've gone over the top of the shelves. But I don't think it looks too bad on camera. And obviously I'll be covering these shelves, so some of it will be covered as well. So I'm now going to leave those to dry. So whilst those corner shelves are drying, I want to make a start dressing one of the units, and this is the largest of those 3 units, and I want this to be a sort of kitchen glassware section. So I've taken out of my tub everything that I've got that will suit this section, and I ordered in a few new things as well. So I've got these little jugs here that I got from Streets Ahead, and I got 3 of those. Now I used to sell these in the shop, but they don't actually stand on their own because they've got sort of a rounded bottom. So I'd had quite a few complaints about the fact that they didn't stand, so I stopped selling them in the shop. but all you really need to do is just put a little bit of tacky wax on the bottom and they'll stand up. So that's what I'll be doing with those. And then I ordered the taller jug as well. And I haven't sold these in the shop before, but I think they're really nice. And they do actually stand quite nicely on their own. And then I've got the blue glass bowls. And you've already seen these. I did a little shell display in one of those and they're really nice. And then I've got the Kreisenbond sets. So I think I've got 3 clear sets, and these are plastic, not glass, and I've got 3 blue now, but only 1 of the green sets. So what I actually want to start off by doing is making up the little kits, and they're just really easy to put together. You'd basically just pop the glasses off the little stem, and then you glue together the jug. It just comes in 2 parts, so they're super easy to construct. So I'll do that, and then I just sort of want to very roughly display what I've got on here, just so I can see how much I've actually got and what else I'm going to need to fill it up, and if what I've got as well is enough sort of different bits and pieces. Okay, so let's make a start with the blue glass and put the bowls in the middle. Because I obviously don't want to jam pack the shelves, because then you're looking at quite a bit of expense, but I also don't want them to look really sparse. So I just want to really get a good idea of what I'm going to need, how much extra I'm going to need. And that looks quite nice, little cluster of 3 there. And then let me just grab the tacky wax and we'll get those smaller jugs put into place. And, you know, I stopped selling them because people were complaining about them, but you know, I think when you are sort of buying items that are made in bulk like that over in China, then they're not always going to be perfect. And sometimes I order things from Streets Ahead because they look really lovely in the catalogue, and then when they arrive they're not sort of what you thought. So some of it I do send back. So I've got far too much tacky wax on there because you can sort of see it coming over, but just for the object of this, that's okay. Let's just stand that one up as well. And they as well look nice in a little cluster of 3. So I think that's probably enough for that shelf. I'll leave those now they've fallen, as I'm just going to knock the whole lot off. But obviously I will attach everything with tacky wax or glue when we actually come to completing the display. Right, so let's see what we've got here. So I've already made some of these up. So I really like that green. I think that's a really nice contrast. So I do want to order another set of those. I think we're going to have them in 2s anyway, so I do glasses like that, and then 2 behind. Which I've only got the 1 set of green, so I'll just do 2 there, and we'll have the jug in the centre, and then two there, but then I'm not going to be able to fit the others, so let's put those glasses behind. Time to bring the old tweezers in. It's easier when you're sort of doing it and you're using your tacky wax, because everything will just stay where you put it. But it's a nice idea to sort of just have a, or a good idea rather, just to have a play around and see what you can fit in. There's a blue glass in there. And it can go there. So I probably do need another set of those. And then I thought we could break that up with the clear. So 2 sets each of the Kreisenbond little glass and jug sets fit really nicely on there, so 8 glasses and 2 of the jugs. So I need to get another green, and then I'm going to keep one of the clear and one of the blue sets for my own collection. I'm going to be having blue in my dining room in my doll's house, so I'm sure I'll be able to use the little blue one in there, and that one look nice in my kitchen. So I just want to show you how easy these little kits are to put together. So you basically just twist the pieces off of the stem, and they're very loosely fixed, so sometimes they do actually come off in transit sort of thing. And then if you've got like any little plastic pools hanging on there, you can just really easily snip those off with your craft knife, just like that. And then the little jugs you just glue together, and I'm even just using my wood glue. Just put a little bit of glue all around the inside edge. Oops, disappearing off camera. That bottom as well, and then they just really easily go together. Oops. So just line them up. Gentle press, and there we are. Let's get those on there as well, just to see how it's all going to look together. So what I will need to do then is order some more bits for the top shelf. So I've got a whole shelf there to fill. So I'm going to have a look through my catalogues. I'll have a look through the Aztec and the Streets Ahead. Oh, that one went under there, didn't it? And see what they've got. But basically I'll be looking for any sort of blue or green or clear glass things. I think that looks really nice. Let's pop that on the jug there. It's just easier to do that with my fingers. Like that. So once I come to sort of attach them, I'll neaten them all up, make sure they're all nice and straight, but I quite like how that looks. So like I say, I'm going to leave those on there for now. I'm not going to attach them until I've got something to go along that top shelf, just in case I feel that I want to sort of change it around a bit. These items are quite big and bulky, so they're at the bottom, and then if what I find is sort of larger than these, then I'll move those up to the top and we'll do it that way. But yeah, quite like that. And then it's just a case of making some little pricing labels on there as well, and I'll probably do some of those little triangle standing ones. So what I want to start doing now is making some bits for those corner shelves, and they're just going to be a selection of lots of interesting bits and pieces. So I've got some of the little shell jars left over, little beach fine jars, and I've got a couple of little blue glass jars here as well, which I thought might look quite nice. And then what I want to do now is create some glazed vases. So I've taken 6 out of that little pack of 12 I had in clusters of 3 that look really nice together, and I'm going to use an acrylic paint called Cobalt Blue, and then I'm going to apply a clear varnish to give them that glaze. Now I don't know if you remember, but a little while ago I did a video for YouTube showing you how to customise these little vases, and when I did that I actually put a cocktail stick inside the vase with a little bit of tacky wax around it, but this time, as you can see, I've attached them to some masking tape and I'm going to paint them that way, and that's just because I want to get inside that little top bit as well. I don't want any of the terracotta showing through. At least if I can sort of get the body of the vase painted, and then I can pick it up and finish off around the bottom. So that's one coat of acrylic on each of those, and I changed the masking tape just because I couldn't see where the vase stopped and the tape began. And and it's easier to see on the cream tape. So I'm now going to leave those to dry, and then either later on today or in the morning I'll come back and give those a coat of clear varnish. So what I'm going to make now are some wooden candlesticks, and things like spindles are really good for candlesticks, so spindles and newel posts or anything like that that's got a nice shape to them. So I've gone through my drawers and pulled out all of the ones that I've actually cut into, and I actually keep drawers that say cut spindles and posts. So I've got various sort of different shapes and sizes here, and these are the sort of central part of a newel post. And I thought if I cut it just here and then shape this top bit, that looks like a really nice sort of short candle holder. And I've got 2 of those, so I'm going to do that with each of those. And then with these smaller ones, you can just cut the base, and you can have that any height you like, and then cut the top bit where the candle would sit, and then we'll shape them into a circle. So I'll do that with each of those. And 3 of them look nice again in a cluster and at different heights. So you can either cut the base to a different height, you've got sort of small, medium and large, or you can do that with the candles once we get around to making those, which I want to have a go at in the next episode. So you can have a tall, medium and short candle to give them those different heights. Same with these, I'm going to cut a bit off the base and then cut this top and shape that into more of a circle. And with these as well, so I'm going to make 3 different sizes using these, and again cut that top part and shape it into a round candle holder. So we'll start with these little round ones, and I'm using the mitre cutter or the block and saw rather than the handheld one, as you get a straighter cut, I find. So once you've cut your candlesticks, just sand along the bottom of each piece. Just go along your sandpaper in the one direction like that, and that's just to make sure that they're standing straight. And then check them actually on a clear area of your desk rather than your cutting mat, because that doesn't always stand straight. And then take a piece of smaller sandpaper and just in your hand just work around the top piece, which is usually square, and you're just rounding off the corners, so you're making more of a rounded platform there for the candle. So just sort of sweep the sandpaper around. It doesn't have to be perfectly round, but just take away those square corners. And although that's still uneven, you can see just a little bit of sanding, and that's started to round it off quite nicely. These spindles are usually made of a nice soft wood, so they're quite easy to sand and shape. Like that. So that's those done, and I'm really pleased with how they look. And these larger ones I'm going to use to stand actually in the fireplace rather than on the shelves, because obviously they'll be a little bit too big. But what I'm going to do now is paint these in a selection of blues. My little vases are now dry as well, so I'm going to use this Rustin's Quick Dry Satin Varnish just to give them a really nice glaze. That adds a really nice sheen. I'm now going to leave those to dry, and that only takes about 30 minutes. So I saw in one of my reference photos a really nice little basket with some rolled up placemats, fabric placemats inside it. So I'm going to make one of those. So I've done similar here to any sort of drawer or basket that we'd make, and it's going to be 38mm wide by 25mm deep, so 1.5 inches by 1 inch. So I'll just give you the measurements of these pieces. So for the base, that's 34.5mm or 1 3/8 inch by 22mm which is 7/8 of an inch. And then for the side pieces, 22mm again, so 7/8 of an inch by 15mm high, 5/8 of an inch. And then the front piece, 38mm or 1.5 inches by 15mm high or 5/8 of an inch. And then just construct in the same way that you would a drawer. So just get a bit of glue on my card. So begin by applying glue to each side of the base piece. Pop that back down and attach the sides, making sure you've got a flush edge along the front and back. And then press those into place using your spare strips. Allow that to dry off for a moment. Apply glue to the front and back edges. Attach the front and back pieces, making sure you've got flush edges along each side, and you may need to pull those side pieces out to meet the edges. And then once you've got it into shape, you can sort of get hold of it and give it a good press. Use your strips as well to push the pieces along the front and back edges. And that can then be left to dry. And whilst that's drying, I'm going to make some wooden serving trays. And again, these are 38mm by 25mm, so 1.5 inches by 1 inch. And I'll just give you those measurements again. So the base piece is 34.5 or 1 3/8 of an inch by 22mm deep, and that's 7/8 of an inch. And then your side pieces are 22mm by 6mm, 7/8 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch, and the front piece is 38mm by 6mm or 1.5 inches by 1/4 of an inch. And these are constructed, as you know, in exactly the same way. And I'm doing 3 of these, so I'm going to line the bases on 2 of them and have those standing up. And then I'm going to have one laying down with some little bits and pieces in, just to add a little bit more interest. And I'm keeping these really simple, so I'm not going to do the little holes in the handles. So again, use your strips to press those into place. That really does make it easier, especially when you've just got short side pieces and not a lot to hold on to. Pop that to one side. I'll carry on with the others while that glue begins to dry off. And then attach the front and back pieces. Again, make sure you straighten up your sides so that you've got those flush edges. And we'll be sanding around these as well once the glue has completely dried. So once the basket is completely dried, I sanded that on all edges to get this nice square flush box. And now I'm just going to apply a coat of paint on the inside. And that's just so that when my placemats are stood in there, you're not going to see any of the natural wood. I'm using the tidal wave paint for that. I'm going to go around those top edges as well, and then I can just bring my fabric level with the top of the box. I'm going to be using that lovely sort of canvas type fabric for this. So that can now be left to dry. Once that's dry, we can add the fabric. So I've done the same thing with my 3 trays, sanded them to create a nice flush tray, and I'm also going to paint these. And even though I will be sticking some card on the inside, I'm still going to paint the insides, and that way if you cut your card just a little bit too shy, then you won't be able to see any of the natural wood. So to cover the basket, cut a piece of fabric that's 25mm high, 1 inch, and then long enough to fit around the basket with just a little bit of an overlap at the back there. And then we're going to begin by applying glue to the outer edges of the box or the basket. And then bring in your fabric and start in at the front of the basket. Line that up along the top edge. Bring it right up so you can't see any of the wood showing above it. And then fold it round. I'm sure you've seen me do this before. Normally I would line the basket with fabric as well. Press it against the box. Helps if you sort of crease in those corners as well as you're going around. And then just apply a little bit of extra glue under the flap there. Press that down. And then bring in your scissors and just snip down each corner. Then going to fold the side pieces in first. Just get those out of the way. Apply a bit of glue to the bottom of the box. Stick the side flaps down. And then at the front and back just trim off at a little bit of an angle. Apply glue to the flaps again. And fold those over. I'll snip that bit of fabric off. And press that against the bottom of the box. And that can then be left to dry. And then for the actual placemats, I've cut 8 pieces of fabric measuring 38 by 25, so 1.5 inches by 1 inch. And although the packets are going to be sold in 4, because I've already done a little label, I'm just actually rolling 2 together, just so it doesn't look too bulky. So just put them together and roll them up. And then apply a little bit of glue to both flaps. And then stick that down. Pop that over there to dry. So I've done some plain blue ones here as well. And then I've just cut some strips of the canvas, which I'm just going to fold around the centre of each set, like that. I think that adds quite a nice little detail. So just put a little bit of glue on the ends of that strip. And you could use a piece of paper for this. You could print a label to go around. I printed a label to go on the front of the basket, but you could individually price them if you wanted to. Just give that a press and then just pop that to one side to dry. The final one there. And then put a little bit of glue in the bottom of the basket. And then display the placemats like that. And I'm just going to have 2 in each row. Like that. And I think I might mix those as well. I was planning on doing 4 rows in there, but that's okay. Just squish them up a little bit. Give those a press down so they're sticking to the bottom there. And then I've got here my little price label. I think that's a bargain price. Stick that on the front like that. And let's go and try this in place. And I've started putting all of the shelves back in just because I've got a lot on my desk at the moment and I'm beginning to feel a little bit shut in. But it's also nice to see how it's going to look. And I really love the coloured glass on there. That adds one of those much needed splashes of colour in there. So again, I haven't really planned out these shelves, so I'm just going to try some things in place. And I think I'll have that over there because that just sits nicely on that back shelf. I was just trying to pull it forward a little bit more, but I just keep knocking it out of place. That looks quite nice there. And then I've done the trays and I've really just lined them with some of my card, all those little scrapbook papers. And because I've got that taller shelf, I thought I'd have one stand in there like that. And then I've done one with the sort of shells and fish paper. I thought that looked quite nice. And I'll have that at the front like that, just to create some different angles and heights there. And then I've got that space. Remember we sort of created a couple of high cutouts. We've got one there on the back wall and then one between those 2 smaller shelves in the centre there to stand some taller items. But what I thought I would actually do, one of you very kindly sent me a picture of a wooden clock that you've actually got in your own home and thought it might be nice for the shop. So what I've done is I found some images again on Google. Move that central one out of the way. And I've printed them off and I've just actually backed them here onto card. Now as the glue has begun to dry, they've curled up a little bit. And I should have known better really, because normally I would put them onto wood, but because I was hurrying, it was easier to do card rather than wood. But what I am going to do is just fix a strip of wood onto the back of each. And then what I thought is I could actually put them on the wall above those trays in that sort of higher area. I'll probably only be able to get a couple up there, but I thought that might look quite good. And because they're on the back wall as well, you're not actually going to see that they are only thin. If you put them on the side wall, you can see that that's just a piece of card. But on the back there, sort of standing forward a little bit, that would look like it had some depth to it. So let's do that now. So I've just cut from 1.5mm sheet, 1/16 of an inch, just 2 squares like that that fit just on the inside of the clock. I'm just going to glue them to the back. Make sure the piece of wood is completely concealed behind the clock face. Like that. So that will just stop it from sort of curling inwards. And I'm actually now going to glue these directly into place. And that one there like that. And then what I'll do is I'll print a pricing label as well to go up there. And then what I thought I'd do is just bring in some of these little shell vases and have those in that corner. A couple more of those. And again, I'm not going to sort of stick everything into place yet, because I want to be able to have a play around and move things if I want to. But I quite like how they look. And then I thought I'd have the little blue vases over on this one and sort of displayed so that they're facing towards the window, or, you know, to the sort of fourth wall of the shop. Sorry if that's just my hand in the way there. These are quite fiddly to stand up. I sort of wanted them in little clusters of 3 like that, so have that one there as well. And then I'll put the other 3 behind there, and then you've got a nice display from sort of looking into the shop from this way, but also looking in from the front. And then what I thought I'd do is make another couple of crocheted cushions, and I'm just going to pinch a couple from the bed above just to show you what I mean. So I thought I could have one standing there and then another there, and again you've got a nice sort of view from looking from that way, and then if you come around there like that, and obviously that blue is the wrong colour, in fact the ecru might look nicer, but what I was trying to do was just create a backdrop for those vases so that they stand out as well. Or something like that, so you again got that nice view from the front angle as well. I think that looks quite nice, you know. I think that looks quite good. And I'm sorry that I'm sort of moving the camera around a lot, but my tripod's gone a bit baggy. So the camera sort of keeps tilting forwards, I think, because it's got like a little metal ball socket at the top of the stand, and I think the screw is sort of worn it away a bit, so it's no longer sort of holding it firmly. So if you suddenly sort of drop forwards, that's why, but it looks to be sort of quite nicely propped at the moment. And then what I've also got here are the wooden candlesticks, and I think I may need a few more of these. The other ones I did were a little large for over here. There were some large ones which I want to stand in front of the fireplace. That's those there, which you can't see. So I'll do that in a moment. I've just moved that shelf out of the way because I just kept knocking it. And then I had these medium ones which I thought would fit on these shelves. Maybe they'd go in that middle. No, I think they're too big for this display, so I'm going to use those over on the fireplace as well. So what I've got left are the smaller candlesticks there, and these ones, they're not sort of obvious as candlesticks. So what I'll do is when we do the candles in next month's episode, when we get the polymer clay out, I'll make a couple of candles to go on those, so they're more sort of, it's more obvious what they are. But what I think I need to do is do this little cluster of 3 closer to the front, and then maybe make some more to stand at the back there, just to fill that shelf out, because we're going to have gaps otherwise when looking in from the front, which I didn't really want. So I'll make some more of those. And then I've got that 3rd tray here, which could stand down there, but I can't think at the moment what to put on there, so I'll have a think about that as well. So I've still got quite a bit to fill there, and obviously I've got that top shelf as well. But I think already just with those few bits it's looking really good, and that's really the look I wanted for those shelves. That sort of odd assortment of different bits and pieces. Okay, so let me get this shelf back in place, and then I can show you what I wanted to do with those larger candlesticks. And originally this larger one was over by the fireplace, so I don't know whether I will swap them around. It just looked nice with sort of things on there to have not an empty shelf next to them. So we can sort of really see how it's coming together. But I like that quite a lot. So what I thought I'd do, I've put the shutters to one side like that, and then I thought I could have these sort of medium-sized ones actually up on the mantelpiece like that. I'll have that one a little bit more forward, and then have these three down actually on the hearth. I can pop one back in there. I can actually put them into a little sort of pyramid, which always looks nice. Especially when you've got three different size items, then your eye is sort of automatically drawn to the back and pulls you around. That might look nicer actually in front of the white. It looks quite nice. So I like that. And I've got a few more ideas of things to make for the assorted shelves over there. So I've just remembered those larger prints that I had left from the scrapbook paper. So I've just stood one of those in there, in that tall gap, and then I can display some things in front of it as well. So I removed two of the little sand jars, and I've actually put those up there on those lamp tables, because remember I said I wanted to put a few more bits on there. And then what I'll do is I'll make up a few more of the stand-in picture frames and put a couple on there as well, just to fill that out. And I think I'll make a few more of those to stand on these shelves as well. But what I want to do now is come back to the shop counter and actually start gluing some of these smaller pieces in place. So I've just had a play around underneath here, and I think it makes sense to have the extra till rolls and all the cleaning products at the bottom there. And then I've also got this bottle of water, which I recently got into stock in my Etsy shop, and this is the smaller of the pack of two. And I thought maybe one of the cashiers might have a bottle of water to hand under there. And I'll also find out maybe a little mug and coaster, and they can tuck underneath there as well. And linking onto that, perhaps we could have a little packet of sandwiches and an apple, which somebody's just put under there for their lunch. So drop one of the little pencils out of the pencil pot there. Let's pop that back in. Now that is already glued into place, my desk tidy, and I think that's where I replaced one of the little circles at the front because it became detached, and then I just stood it back into place and it's actually glued itself into place. So I'm going to leave that there and then just glue everything else into place, just because every time I move this everything's falling. And it will just be easier now that we're at the stage where we need to keep getting into the back of the downstairs of the shop. So I'm going to glue the till into place as well. So let me get a bit more glue on my card. So I'm going to stick that into place there. And the little Save the Dolphins pot. And those there. And then what I thought as well under here, have a big box labelled returns, and then maybe have a cushion inside it with some stuffing coming out, and maybe just make something and break it to go in there, because in all shops I've worked in there's always been a lot of returns. We'll sort of fill that space out with some other bits like that as well. down there. Just going to grab those tweezers and see if I can get into the back of there. Actually push that down all the way along. And then let me get those out. Oops. So this is what happens, everything just keeps falling about when nothing's attached. I'm going to have that right on the end there. And then just stick that back a little bit. I think I can get in there with my fingers. And I want that to be a bit of a backdrop to the duster, so I'm just going to stick that there. Balance in on the cocktail stick there. Give that a good press down. And then have the little dusters in that space because I can sort of manipulate those into shape. Like that. I'll move that out of the way there as well. Oops. Doesn't want to stick down, that roll of cleaning cloth. And then finally the little tin of polish. Oops. Just pinged out of the tweezers. Thought I'd press down. And I'll try to think of something else just to poke back in there to fill that space out. So now just this central shelf, so I'm just going to put the stock sheets against that side. Nothing wants to play today. Ooh. Just touch the glue there. Put a bit of glue on the back there. And just push that in there. You forget as well when you sort of come back to things what you've actually made. I forgot about that stock sheet. I told you, didn't I? Nothing wants to be glued down today. Pop that in there. And then the little sellotape dispenser at an angle. Like that. And I've still got plenty of room that I can sort of put things at the back as well. And you can always just sort of make little cardboard boxes to stand. There's always boxes of things under counters. I'm not going to glue that into place yet because if I get the little sandwiches and everything, I'll want to do a little display with the 3 items, the sandwiches and the apple, and somebody's mug as well, or a couple of mugs. But that will be much easier now to transport in and out of the shop. So let's put that back into place. It goes back a little bit further like that. And that will be there. And I just really wanted to see the effect of that with the till in place. And I really like that with all those bits behind as well. So just one last thing before I end this episode, and I'm not sure if you remember this, but this is an oil painting that Matt did for me for my study in my doll's house. But since I've changed my mind on having a beach themed study, I'm going to use this painting in here, and it was actually one of your ideas as well to have some local paintings in the shop. So I'm going to have this probably up here near the till, but I haven't made a final decision yet, so I'm not going to glue it into place yet or tacky wax it into place. And I'll see if Matt can actually do another one of these, or maybe a couple of smaller ones that could go beneath, and then I can put like a little sticker next to them saying by local artist Matt Warren. And I think that will look really nice up there. There's not really a lot of wall space left to put things like that. There is a bit of wall space out in the entrance hall and obviously upstairs, but I think something like this would probably be kept sort of on the main shop floor where the staff can keep an eye on it, because obviously it would be one of the more expensive items. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Now in the next episode we'll be continuing with the accessories for the shop, so I'll see you then. Take care, bye.